The LV1 had almost a lukewarm reception when it came out. Since we've been around it, it's definitely changed our minds, and it's been explained to us very well. Hopefully we can extend some of that wisdom that we've got and that we've discovered about this gun. In addition to that, we're going to show you how you break it down, how you take it apart. And that was a very important part of the marker, exactly how you took it apart. Its toolless disassembly is truly revolutionary, and there's nothing else in paintball that's like it right now. We also had a very special interview with Jack Wood himself, and I had got the privilege to ask him a bunch of questions that, well, a lot of people didn't ask. That should be a pretty fun thing for you guys to watch later. Also, the efficiency. The efficiency of this marker is pretty incredible. When we go outside and actually test shoot it, you guys are going to see that. So that's another thing that you should be looking forward to later in the video. And of course, you're going to actually get to see players playing with it and hear our personal opinions about what, as far as I'm concerned, is not only the most technologically advanced paintball marker right now, but the absolute, bar none, best paintball marker money can buy. LV1. Even the name is a departure from previous Ego models. And perhaps that's the best way to think of it. A hybrid between ergonomics and quality of shot that the Geo has always possessed, but the reliability and efficiency that has always been the trademark of the Ego series. When it first came out, I was admittedly not a fan of. Perhaps it was simply a crisis of lighting, and I do think it looks particularly fetching in green. Perhaps this will be the finest moment for Planet Eclipse, because as far as I'm concerned, the LV1 is all things to all men. Now we have our tech digital gauge here. It's currently reading 45/45. You guys may be able to see that, I hope so. But it is above 4,500, so we will shoot it down and get as close as we can before we start the test officially. Let's get to it. Well, let's get it loaded up, chronoed, and we'll see where we're at. As we said, it is cold out, so hopefully the paint isn't too unruly. .281, 288. 290, 282, 285. Let's get to it. .215, 218. Once it goes under 200, we'll call it there. 208, 206, 201, and 193. Well, let's get this counted up.
Oh my god, that's so quiet.
Oh yeah, it is.
You can't hear it over there.
What is that, red?
Dude, it's so smooth too.
What? It's
the LV1. I'm simply impressed right now.
Wow.
Horizontal contact guy.
We've all become fairly accustomed to what you actually get in one of these boxes. And this one's no different. It starts with, the nice packaging on the outside. You have the LV1 logo, all the various technologies, and I'm using stickers and stuff on it. But what really matters is what's on the inside. Our case. Start with the new LV1 logo. It's actually, I think, a rather handsome black and green, but perhaps we're biased here at Hustle. The dual zippers, which have so far shown to be very resilient to long-term use. Go ahead and open it up. Now, this is where I do want to get to the one thing that has chafed us here at Hustle. The manual. I love the manual. It's great, but it doesn't fit up here anymore. It's just barely too wide. They wanted to make the pictures easier to see. So in doing that, it won't fit up here. So your manual now has to live on top of your marker. But since we're talking about the manual, it is still the best manual in Paintball. And I'm really big on paper manuals, and so are the guys at Planet. It comes with complete, full-color pictures of everything you can ever want to do. It's fantastic. It has all the menus, detents. It's all written in a very easy-to-follow manner. It's just great. So, bam, it's a manual. It even has an operating, an operations diagram. It's just, these things are just the best. And my favorite, as I've said before, is, I can never find it in these videos, this page. This has all the O-ring sizes in their actual size. So if you don't know what an O-ring is, you can take it out of your marker, put it on the picture, and it'll be right. So that's pretty cool. But that's not the only thing you get. Of course, the marker itself, all the spare O-rings and detents and screws and everything you could ever want. But this is also where the lighter weight rammer is. So if you want your marker to feel more like Egos of old, you can use this lighter weight rammer and it will make the marker feel a little bit more snappy, I guess. It has some other tuning purposes, but we're not really going to go into tuning in this video, mostly because we want to do another video on how to do that. But the spares are always one of my favorite things about Planet markers because you can rebuild everything in the gun. You can keep your gun working for years with this. Oil, of course. I do know that Planet's rolling out new oil containers. They don't use these old ones anymore. But for now, it's the one that we've all had before. It's wisely included in a bag because they leak, but they get the job done. Keep it in the bag. Of course, Planet's tool tube, which these are actually good tools that you want to keep and use. The reason being is they have ball ends on them. And that means you don't have to be straight up and down on the screw. You can be off to an angle, which is why they're great to use. They also will fit in here if you need to use a T-handle. Do not use them that way. There is nothing on the marker that you need to crank down that much. But in case you have to get it off a teammate's gun or just somewhere else in your life, you at least have the option to turn these into a T-handle. The Planet Eclipse barrel bag, which many people have loved and used. This one's actually a little bit used. We have been using this as our review gun, of course. And the Shaft 4 barrel, my personal nemesis. Screws together. Probably the best aluminum two-piece barrel in the game. These barrels are just fantastic. When people replace the barrels on their Egos, it just drives me bananas. But the real star of the show is the marker itself. Now, one of the immediately apparent things, and that you guys have already seen, is that it no longer uses a macro line, although it can if you would like. Air goes in through the POPs ASA, up the front of the grip frame, through the bottom of the trigger guard, and through the air tube into the SL4 regulator. The reason this was done is because macro lineless markers are very hard to work on. They're just tough to figure out what's wrong with them because you can't separate the grip frame from the body and still have the gas flow through the marker, of course. With this, you can, well, still do that. It's pretty fantastic. The other thing that you can do, Planet is going to make an adapter that will allow you to remove this swivel and attach a normal macro line. So you can just attach that into an ASA of some kind, and then you can tech the marker that way as well. So there are definitely more options with this. The bolt and rammer are, I think, they're the parts of the Ego most people are familiar with, mostly because those are the parts that you actually have to service. And since we're talking about that, get out my handy dandy Planet Eclipse tech mat here, and I can actually show you. As you guys may have noticed, I'm not using Allen keys to get this off. The rammer cap is completely toolless. You can just do it with your fingers. That is so much better, I cannot even put it into words. I should also point out while we're here that the bolt and rammer, for example, will not work in older model Egos. The reason being, the bolt pin is much shorter and the bolt itself is much longer. If you try to put this in an Ego, it would protrude about 1/4 of an inch into the breech. So it just wouldn't work. So don't ask us if you can put the new Cure 5 in any of your older Egos. You can't. I'll just tell you right now. As for the bolt itself, you may notice that it now has O-rings to seal on both sides of the air inlet port, which is pretty cool. The rammer that it comes with is a heavier rammer. The idea being is that as the pressure accelerates it, it will carry more weight to open the valve in a slower and more controlled manner. If you did want to go with more efficiency, and even though this is not a tuning video, you can put the other smaller, more lightweight rammer in, and it would make your Ego feel more like a marker of old. So this is the new bolt system. It's awesome, and it's only part of all the improvements that the LV1 have. Back to the marker itself. To get actually into the front of the marker, this is my favorite part. Now, you don't have to service your LPR or valve guide or any of that stuff very often, but when you do, you had to take out some screws, and it was kind of a hassle. With this, the airline itself will telescope together. Go ahead and unscrew it. It'll like screw into itself. And as soon as it clears the grip frame, you can rotate it, pull it out of the way. That's all it is. It's just two threaded together pieces. In fact, you can take it apart. There is an O-ring in the center here by just unscrewing it all the way and replacing it with O-rings. I suspect these will fail almost never. They don't move. They don't take a lot of stress. These O-rings should last forever. Once that's done, just like the older Egos, you unscrew the regulator. Comes free. It's female threaded, just like the old SL3s. And honestly, inside, it is very similar to the SL3. So you guys don't really need to worry about it. But if you do, the bottom comes off. like so. You can slide the swivel off. And then, if you want, you can also use it to take off the rubber. That's the rubber grips. This is the reg body itself. All the parts come out like the old ones. To get inside it is fairly painless. And in fact, we'll put the marker out of the way. It's getting a little cluttered. You need your 1/8 Allen. Go into the bottom. This is also where you adjust the velocity. Start screwing all the pieces up, and it will all come out together. So there, that's the inside of your regulator. Just like you guys saw in the GO2 video, the inside of the reg is all the same. Reg piston, spring, adjuster top and bottom, and the piston seat is inside here. If you need to get into it for any reason, that piston seat does wear out and occasionally you have to change O-rings. Take your 1/8 and a smaller Allen key, unscrew it like so, and it will come out. Here, this is your adjuster seat. It should move up and down freely. If it doesn't, you can remove it and flip it over, which is pretty nice. When you're done with that, you can just screw it back together, put the whole thing back together, and that's pretty much it for the regulator. They're very, very simple, which is good. You don't want it to be complicated. This is one of the parts that you will need to grease. Your marker will not come with grease, but you do need to do it from time to time. Planet Eclipse grease will work just fine. Once it's in there, it's a question that we often get asked. Where and how do I factory reset my regulator in case it's being unruly? Well, once you have it bottomed out where it will not screw out any farther, take your Allen key and put it screwed back in 1, 2, 3 times, and that's pretty much reset to factory. Put it back in here. It will line up whichever way you do it, so you don't need to worry about it, about what way the rubber grips are on it. Slide the swivel back on, slide on the bottom cap, hook it back in place, and that's it. That's the whole SL4 regulator. Pretty painless. Just like the old ones, just has this new shell. Back to the marker. This is the cool part. This is what you guys have probably seen a lot of in videos and in all the preview stuff. You can just pull down on the front of the rubber grip. It'll come free. Set it aside. And now, in the bottom here, there's this black piece. It's called the tuning fork. Now you can't just pull it out here because it's under spring tension. But if you wanted to, press down on the cap, and it will, in theory, pull out. It might be difficult. If it is, just grab an Allen key. Sometimes your hands are slippery, like say if they were covered from grease from taking your reg apart. Pull the tuning fork out. That's all it is. It's this little black piece. Set it aside, and the LPR and the valve body will come out. There are still some parts in there, of course, that we have to get out. And of course, the best way, there we go, parts. There is one more, and that is actually a part you might have to replace. Down inside the LPR housing is the LPR piston. Just so you guys know, you might need some pliers to get it out. There's an O-ring on there. And of course, all these O-ring sizes are all in your manual. So they're no problem to figure out what they are. They're all included in the kit. But we're not going to get that out for now because we don't need to. Here, however, the insides of the marker. The LPR itself is 2 pieces. My hands are slippery. Oh, there we go. It doesn't screw. This is the piston seat. Right here, this little black thing. That thing does wear out from time to time. You might have to replace it. And here's the adjuster top. The reason this is significant is now the LPR actually does something. In Egos of old, the LPR didn't do anything. It was either on and working or off, and no air was flowing through it at all. You had very little adjustment on it. Now you do. Now you can actually adjust and tune your marker a lot. So keep that in mind for you guys who like to tinker and optimize your guns. This actually does stuff now. But here it is, the heart of the marker itself. The new redesigned exhaust valve. It has this larger stem on it, and of course, what they call the onion valve, which is this, bulbous part of the exhaust valve here. The idea behind it, of course, is that it has a larger sealing surface, and without having any sharp edges like the old ones did, it would have a more laminar airflow. Air would travel more smoothly over it. In addition to that, with the spring here contained in the sheath, there's no places for air to get hung up on and stuck, and a decrease in efficiency. If you guys remember old Egos, this is the exhaust valve spring. It is much smaller and lighter. Older ones were pretty tough. They were pretty stern. It's just, it feels so different on the inside. Put it all back together, it's exactly the same as you took it apart. Drop everything in, it'll all line up pretty much without any issues. Put the spring back on the piston. It'll just fall right in place. Actually, we have to put the LPR in first. There we go. Once they're in place, these will line up together. You can depress them, put in the tuning fork, and that's it. And you can start putting it back together. No screws. You didn't have to, take stuff out of the center of the marker or anything hidden. Is just all completely toolless. It's very charming. Of course, it's a little deceptive since you don't have to get in there very often. But in case you do, it's just not an issue. Once everything's back in place, grab your air tube, which I expanded slightly, demonstrating it. Line it back up, start screwing it in place, and it should seat itself. All right, that's back in place. Last but not least, turn the marker over here. The parts that are not toolless are the grips. The reason, at least as was explained to me, is that they couldn't find any way to make the grips toolless and still feel robust and not feel like they were going to break. They still just can't beat screws for reliability. You guys put a lot of stress on these things, so that's why they use screws. As with all Planet Eclipse markers, all the eye screws and grip frame screws are always the same, 5/64. Take your driver out and go ahead and unscrew them. Same screws we've come to know and love with nylon patches on them and everything. Once you have the screws removed, pop open the grips. And this is where you guys are going to see how different it is than the old Egos. All this reinforcement metal in here. We all know that people complained for many years about Planet Eclipse grip frames bending. Well, they did that on purpose so it would not hurt players when they fell on it. But they got sick and tired of the complaints, and in addition to that, now that there's actually air running through here, they needed to reinforce it more. So now you guys aren't going to have to worry about your frames breaking, but now you're going to have to call the ambulance. So just be aware of that. The gun is much more reinforced. I do not think we're going to see bent grip frames ever again, at least not on these LV1s. They're just fantastic. However, other than that, the board is the same, uses the same solenoid as the Ego 11. It's even adjustable, as you guys can see, maybe down in here. But it's adjustable just like the Ego 11 is, has the same forward and rearward stroke control. So that's awesome. Between that, the adjustable LPR, the different weight rammers, you can really tune this gun a lot. There's one other thing in here I did want to show you guys that I thought was cool. The old nav console, which is this back strap here, this part, on old Egos, really up until now, they were all held in by adhesive, which would occasionally fail or get wet or whatever. No longer. It's now held in with a screw. You can remove it just by taking that screw out and change it out for a new one. So that's I think that's a pretty cool addition to the Ego line. And that's pretty much it. That's the whole marker. It's so simple. It doesn't require the same level of explanation that previous guns did because there's just nothing to it. Or I don't mean to say that in a unfair manner. It's very clever. The cam lever itself, we don't need to go into, but you guys can see it. It's deep down inside the gun, and it just works. It's really not that important to the mains. You never have to service it. It will never break. It's just a mysterious piece in your gun that will just work. What were your inspirations when designing the LV1?
The reason we went for the LV1 and the way that it works with the lever is because we found with the GO3 we had the bolt speed control, and you could really change the tone of the gun and the way that it felt just by turning that little dial on the GO3. So that got me thinking about, right, so there's obviously a really big correlation between the speed that the valve opens and the speed the air is released from the valve. And if we can replicate that in an Ego, counteract all those things that people don't like about the Ego at the moment, which is loud or kicky or whatever. So then we started exploring different routes of being able to do that, and came up with a lever design change the ratio of speed between the rammer and the valve mechanism. So the inspiration for what goes inside the Ego really came from the GO3 and what we did with the GO3. So it's like a natural progression and trying to move what we did with the GO3 over to a different platform. That's where the idea came up from for that. So.
How about the exterior of the marker?
You can take it in different ways because the actual body styling, if you look at the cuts and the way it's like linear then stepped and linear and then steps up again, that's all from the GO3. So we tried to make it like a matching pair of guns with the machining, the actual lines inside the body itself are very similar. And then the grips and the foregrip were sort of a bit detached from that, and we sort of developed those separately and then tried to blend them into the styling we had with the body that was taken from GO3. So, but nothing specific. It's not like going back to the first SL that we did, the SL66, which was purely inspired from a Mercedes CLS with the curving lines it had at the time. That was quite revolutionary for like a coupe, a four-door coupe sedan, if you like. And those, we blatantly ripped those style lines off that. The more modern Ferraris, like the 458s and things like that, with the venting in the front and the like mini wings they have in the valance at the front, take quite a lot of styling cues from concept cars as well, but nothing specific for LV1. It was more of a trying to make it match to the GO3.
The cam lever is the heart of the LV1. Just how much work was it to get it functioning?
Coming up with the concept was a moment of pure inspiration. It was just that. It was like, well, if I do this and do that, then I'll get what I need. But then from that moment to implement it into a gun is months of work. So inspiration, by its definition, comes very quickly. And then just making sure it works and it functions every single time, and it'll do millions of shots without falling to pieces or breaking something inside the gun. That's the hard part. And that's what takes a lot of time and concentration and effort to get right. And then obviously a lot of testing on top of that.
The beta testers are a fairly integral part of the process then.
I mean, we place a lot of trust in our beta testers and the teams that we use for testing the products. And I have to say, for the LV1, they did an amazing job because it was out there for a long, long time before the public got to see it. We sort of teased it ourselves with the block gun that was photographed, and we like LEDs and flash used at a big game down in France, and we sort of teased it a bit with that, just see what people's reactions were, and we knew what direction we were going in at that point, but that was really, really basic prototype. All that was inside that gun was the lever mechanism. It had a standard LPR on it, standard frame, well,
It looked like an Ego LV1 frame.
Yeah, it was a CSL frame. It was, and we had. We just did it with a block body just because it was easy and quick for us to do, and it would talk about the moment of inspiration. It was like, right, a lever, okay, let's try that, and I'll do it this way, and we'll stick it inside a body and see if it even works first of all. And that was like, okay, so story from defining moment of saying, right, this is going to work. We know this is going to work. We just need to develop it and make sure it's perfect. It was. I got the first prototype body in. I got the cam holder and the little lever, got all those parts in, the rammer, all those bits, built it into a gun, sat in my office, screwed it together, screwed a gas tank onto it, went boom, went, whoa, it works, way, great, let's go and take it down to the chrono. So take it downstairs, take it into the chrono room, put a loader onto it, fired it into our firing range, and I was like, oh, this is no good. Like, okay, it goes bang, but that's about it. And there's like, I must have worked something out wrong. It's like there's no velocity. It just feels like nothing's happening inside the gun. Stuck it over the chrono anyway, even though I was expecting it to go like 120, 130, something like that. And it went 430 feet per second. And I was like, holy shit. And before I did, I literally fired 3 or 4 balls over the chronograph, And I just went, everybody get in here now! And I covered up the reading and said, right, just fire that over chrono and tell me what it's shooting. And everybody went, 180, 190, and I uncovered it and it was like 430, 450 feet per second. Like, holy crap, that's not doing that velocity. And everybody's just firing it going, doesn't even feel like it's firing. So obviously that was the first bit, and we just developed it from there, and we knew we had a winner straight away. So.
What have been people's first reactions?
Just like, it doesn't feel like it's firing. I have to keep checking. Like, a guy came over and said, I was like shooting down the line, and I was firing my gun and looking inside, and I thought my gun had stopped working. So I turned around and paint was still coming out there, and it's like, that can't be right, that can't be right. Just the other weekend, one of the directors of the company, Jules, he went with his kids, gone off playing like a training session, and he said he was shooting a really dark shell, just like a wreck ball, as just like a brown shell, and he was firing the gun, and he was like, I'm not even sure if any paintballs are coming out at the end. It doesn't feel like anything's happening. So I shoot it at the floor, there's paintballs coming out, and like, this is just, like I say, just like a surreal feeling. It is really just so different to anything else you shot.
Going back to the styling, why was it such a departure from the previous models?
It had to be a complete package, because if it looks like an Ego on the outside, no matter what you did on the inside, people just go, oh, it's just the same old gun. And they would switch off straight away and just go, it's a new Ego, there's nothing to interest me here. So you have to engage your customer and just make sure, I mean, we're not perverse and just made stuff just for the sake of making it, but we've got this amazing platform. We might as well change everything about the gun. Everything that everybody didn't like about the old gun, we might as well do it all in one go and have a new package. So many times people said, oh, can you get rid of the LPR off the front because I want to hold it like this and wrap my thumb over the top. So that was a major thing that went into it. Everybody really likes the fact that the grip can go higher, so the actual benefit of one of the benefits of having the lever system is that the rammer can go really high, and there's literally 0.5 millimeter between the bolt bore and the top of the rammer bore. It's that close to each other, just enough to clear the bolt out. So we just wanted to do everything with the gun, just change every aspect of it, and just make sure that when people saw it for the first time, they didn't just go, oh, it's just another Ego. Even if you read the forums, even if it meant they go, oh, that's nothing like an Ego 11. Ego 11 is beautiful compared to this, and like, well, I don't care, just people are talking about it and thinking about it and going, oh, why have they done this?
On one of the pressure testers we saw, it read Geo LV1. Thoughts?
Yeah, that was just a laser engraving error. Oh. Ignore that.
Just checking.
So, about the SL.
Okay. Here's the secret, that we don't start the SL development until the standard gun has been released, because it's only at that stage you start getting the feedback of what people really want to see changed. So people may think that we have this huge like production schedule, and that we've been planning this for years in advance, and it's a huge conspiracy, and like, we know what we're going to do in like 2020, and we're not that smart. so the SL version isn't even started yet. We always make sure we get the base product out there and working, and everybody's happy with it, take any niggles out of it, and then work on that platform.
Nothing? How about a name?
SLV sounds cool, doesn't it?
This is only the second day of PSP Dallas. Have there been any problems in the pro pits?
No. From Geo3 to LV1s, it was faultless. Didn't even take my toolkit out of my bag today. So it was a very, very easy day.
What do we think? That's why you guys sat through the review. Hopefully you were entertained by some of it beforehand. Well, here's a simple fact. We have been accused on numerous occasions of being Planet Eclipse fanboys. And you know, maybe there's some truth to it, maybe there's not. But this is as unbiased as I can get. Buy this gun. It will make your paintballing life better. At Hustle Paintball, we don't lightly say this, because we often think expensive products are mostly snake oil. The LV1 is absolutely not. It is the most technologically advanced paintball gun that you can buy. And that does not necessarily mean it's overly finicky or complicated or touchy or any of the other complaints I can level at other manufacturers. It is dead reliable. It will run all day. It is extremely easy to take apart. It is an exceptional value for money, and it's a lot of money. So that shows you just how much value you have. Every single part of this gun has been improved 1,000 times over. This is as big a jump as you got from the Ego 5 to the Ego 11. It's that jump again, or maybe more. Just sitting here watching us talk about it in the video does not do it justice. Every single time we've put it into somebody's hands, they have said 100% this thing is fantastic. It's like nothing I've ever shot before. And that's simply the best way to describe it. It's not just about performance metrics, because any company can make a gun shoot 40 balls per second and just go full on blender mode, and I don't care about that. It's not about insane efficiency. Most of us all play at fields. Even for the guys who go play in the woods, you don't shoot 1,500 balls when you're playing woods ball. You just don't. So efficiency is not a hugely relevant metric either, despite the fact that this gun does both of those things exceptionally well. What this gun is it's a gun that will make your paintball life better. If you just want a gun that you can take out of your bag, shoot people all day, and it will work every time you ask it to, there is nothing else like this. It is, and I hesitate to say this because of how some people might take it, but this is a gun for grown-ups. It's for people who no longer want to just monkey around with their guns and they have them go down at the worst possible time. They don't care about the fact that it might not be able to shoot 30 balls per second. That's not what this gun's about. It's about making your paintball life better, and it absolutely does that. Buy one, buy 10, buy one for your friend, your mom, your cousin, your dog, everyone. We've never really said that before in a review, and I think it bears repeating. This gun is truly fantastic, and you guys are going to love it if you ever get a chance to play with one or buy one. If you have any ideas for any of our future videos, hit us up at videos@hustlepaintball.com. Of course, if you'd like to purchase this LV1, well, not this one, this is the giveaway one. But if you'd like to purchase a LV1 or any other paintball product, hit us up, hustlepaintball.com. Of course, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel already, why not? Get to it. The subscribe button is around here somewhere. And last but not least, guys, pbriot.com. It's a forum, it's awesome, but the key is, and why it's relevant to you now, I want to hear what you guys think about this marker. It had kind of a touchy birth. A lot of people had some issues with it, and hopefully we have allayed all your issues. So please get on pbriot.com and let us know what you guys think about this marker. Thanks, guys, and we will see you next time.